The Pentagon's hypersonic weapons programs suffered a setback after a booster rocket failed to lift off. That's according to Reuters. The test was intended to validate aspects of one of the hypersonic glide vehicles in development. Senior Pentagon officials say a separate series of tests Wednesday was successful on Navy and Army hypersonic weapon component prototypes. Meantime, there is a report tonight that China performed a second hypersonic weapons test this summer. The Financial Times is reporting the second launch was about 2 weeks after the first. Pentagon and U.S. intelligence officials were said to be caught off guard by the advances by the Chinese. The U.S. does not currently have missile defense systems able to track and take down a hypersonic missile. Let's talk about this and other stories with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being here.
Great to be. How are you doing tonight, Brett?
I'm good, sir. Knowing what you know about the Chinese and their development militarily and what they have been doing, how concerned are you about these hypersonic missile tests?
Yeah, Brett, this is serious business. Their capability now looks to be within a couple of dozen miles of target for something that travels at multiples of the speed of sound. So this creates a new threat vector for the United States. We've seen several of these during the last 6 to 8 years, not the least of which is certainly their cyber capabilities that you and I have spoken about before as well. This is serious stuff. We need to respond to it. I would add, Brett, the most important thing we have to keep in mind is the intentions of Xi Jinping, the General Secretary himself, right? He's talked about the fact that he wants to have each of us living in a world that looks like his Marxist-Leninist world. We can't permit that. And this military tool that he's developing is just one arrow in the quiver of Xi Jinping aimed at coercive action, not only against the United States, but against the West.
So the White House has evolved in how it's answering this question. Jen Psaki was asked about the hypersonic weapons test report the other day, and then a series of questions about it today. Take a listen.
We have been consistent in our approach with China. We welcome stiff competition, but do not want that competition to veer into conflict, and that is certainly what we convey privately as well.
Are you concerned about Chinese hypersonic missiles?
Yes.
We're not going to comment on the specific report, but generally speaking, we have made clear our concerns about the military capabilities that the PRC continues to pursue. Yes, do we have concerns? We do, and then we're going to continue to speak out.
What else could this administration be doing, message-wise or otherwise, in result of what's happening?
This is a full-on challenge from the Chinese Communist Party. The first thing one has to do is recognize that this isn't about stiff competition. This is about an intention of a Communist Party that wants to undermine our way of life here in the United States. It's the most important thing you can do, Brett. If you underestimate this, or if you just talk about this as a competition, gosh, they had a good day, we had a bad day, that's not what Xi Jinping and the Communist Party are about. We've seen this with the Soviet Union before. We know how communism works. That's the first step. Second, the Obama administration had completely ignored these hypersonic programs. We began to build out both our capability and the capacity to defend against them. We did the same thing in cyber. They certainly need to continue those. And then they need to build out coalitions, much like we had built out the Quad with Japan and India and Australia, to begin to shape how the West was going to respond to these new set of activities from the Chinese Communist Party. Those are the things that administration can do. You can find friends and partners in big economies around the world to push back against China in the way that President Trump and our team did for our 4 years in office.
You were one of the first people to speak out about at least the circumstantial evidence pointing to a lab leak theory in Wuhan and what you were seeing. Now we have this new development about gain-of-function research and what the NIH was doing or not doing. Your thoughts about how that has evolved as well in recent weeks?
Yeah, Brett, I was called racist for contemplating the idea that this virus might well have come from a virology lab inside of China. It's now quite likely that, in fact, that was the case. It's evolved because I think we've had government leaders, including Dr. Fauci, not speak the truth. I heard you play the quote from Senator Paul a bit earlier. He clearly wasn't telling everything he knew about American involvement, taxpayer money going to this virology lab to work on research that was juicing viruses. And there's a lot more questions yet to be answered. I don't think we know the full story. But the fact that this might well have come from that virology lab, and the fact that now, goodness, 2 years on, Brett, the Chinese Communist Party continues to cover up the fact that they allowed a virus to travel around the world that killed 4 million people around the world is something that we should not discount, and that the government, our government, needs to find tools and weapons to respond to the Chinese Communist Party for what they did to the world. This is 4 million people no longer on the planet, Brett, because of what China did.
So how should they pay for it? How should the U.S. push them to pay for if, in fact, that's where this origin came from?
So there's lots of tools. We could certainly find ways to do this in the court system. I've written about options there. There are many where we could use our private court system to benefit those people who were harmed and injured by what the Chinese Communist Party did. But they, too, need to be held accountable. The World Health Organization is not an organization they should be part of. This administration said, nope, we're going to go back into that while they're apart. Well, Brett, that lab is still operating. There's no indication they've improved their safety conditions at that laboratory, and I'm confident they're still working on highly contagious viruses in that laboratory. Those are the kinds of costs you can begin to impose on Chinese Communist Party. They can't be permitted to roam freely around the world and participate in international organizations and hold an Olympics in just a couple of months and do that when, in fact, these people don't care about human life. They took a highly contagious virus that was pretty darn lethal and put people on airplanes to Milan, Italy, and you can see the results. They continue today here in the United States of America. Hundreds of thousands of dead here and lots of people out of work.
Mr. Secretary, I've got to run, but I just want to say personally, you know, you look good. You've lost a lot of lbs. Are you planning for something big?
Thanks for noticing. Yes, my son's getting married in the summer of next year, Brett.
Okay. All right. We'll peg it on that. Thank you, sir, for the time.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.